How's it going guys, Chris here, and in this video we're going to be checking out all the different mutant animals in Zoochosis, a game which puts you into probably the most messed up zoo ever. So just a bit of context on why the animals in Zoochosis are all turning into hellspawn. It's all down to a bunch of rogue alien centipede parasites that are running amok in the zoo that you're currently trying to manage. These seem to be a part of some sort of scientific experiment that's gone out of control, with the parasites being created by a mysterious creature with loads of arms and tentacles known as the Mother, which is hiding away in a locked off area within the facility. Bit of a wacky premise, but just look at it like The Thing but in a zoo. Anyway, with that brief bit of background information out of the way, let's take a look at some of the animals that those parasites are going to be infecting, with the first one that you're likely to see being the giraffe. There's only 3 of these guys wandering around their enclosure, and they're generally placid creatures that spend a lot of time chilling out together, though sometimes choosing to whack each other if they're in a bit of a stroppy mood. But of course, that parasite's going to wreak havoc on them as soon as it takes over, morphing those poor giraffes into big gangly spider-like monstrosities, splitting their mouths wide open, while the whole of their underside is ripped apart by a bunch of new appendages sprouting out from underneath. Pretty nasty stuff. Having all those extra legs lets the mutated giraffe clamber around its enclosure at a much quicker pace, even able to climb around on the walls, hang around on the bridge roof, and even temporarily escape, changing its position and keeping you on your toes. Having a face like a deranged flytrap, it's also no surprise that this thing has given up on being a vegetarian, now choosing to feast on its friends instead, as it scurries around the place, being fairly effective at ambushing its prey, due to it being nimble and much more manoeuvrable. A mutant giraffe might seem like a big target to hit with your dart gun, but having all those limbs flailing around might make it a bit more of a challenge, so you're probably best aiming for that body. Easily the cutest critter on our list is the wallaby, one of the smaller mammals that you'll need to tend to, with 4 of them being found in their outback-styled pen. These marsupials might be lovable little things at first, casually hopping around without a care in the world, but when one gets infected by that evil parasite, things are going to go south very quickly, with the wallaby suddenly looking like some sort of demon velociraptor, now having elongated skinny limbs, a disfigured swollen body, and a face that wouldn't look too out of place in one of Tim Burton's scrapbooks. Not so adorable now. Combined with all these monstrous features, that stomach pouch, which would have once been used to house the young of the animal, is now suited for housing its victims instead, with it morphing into a second mouth packed full of rows of teeth, used to chow down on its unfortunate pen buddies as the mutant wallaby stalks them down from the shadows. To boost its effectiveness when hunting, and to make your life a bit harder when you're trying to dart the creature, the monster's also got a unique cloaking ability, turning itself completely invisible, allowing the creature to move around the arena while hidden, only to reappear in a different location with its flesh and muscle forming around its skeletal frame. Although you might not want any of those poor wallabies to get eaten, it might be best to use them as bait, only to shoot the mutant when it reappears to devour them. You need to be quick if you're doing this, but it's better than wasting darts on something that you can't actually see. It's time to add primates to the list now, as our next enclosure is home to a bunch of beefed up gorillas, with 4 of them roaming around a fairly dark jungle-themed pen, waiting for you to feed them mushy pulp, heal their illnesses, and collect their steaming piles of crap. Our zookeeper might be taking a bit of a chance getting up close to these guys, but compared to those mutants, they'll probably seem like little kittens. Well, up until one of the apes happens to turn into a mutant, that is, with its whole body being ripped open to form a huge gaping jaw full of spiny teeth, heavily mutating the gorilla's structure, while even causing a load of extra eyes to pop up all over its face. Now looking more like a giant toad from hell, this monster isn't exactly a rapid thing, plodding around the place trying to hunt down the other gorillas with that massive gob, but it can still prove to be a bit of a nuisance to hit with those darts, constantly moving around, Spider-Man-ing its way up walls, and chilling out in high up areas. Shouldn't be too problematic, with the gorilla pen being quite small and with the mutant being such a lump. But after you've hit the big guy a few times, the lights are going to shut down, severely reducing your visibility, giving the monster more of an advantage, now able to hunt in the cover of darkness. This forces you to look out for those glowing eyes, maybe even resorting to your torch to try and track the beast down as it paces around in the shadows, giving it one final shot with your dart gun to put it out of its misery. So the only non-mammal creatures that we can visit are the penguins, acting in a similar way to the other animals, despite having a diet of fish instead of veg and herbs. There's quite a lot of penguins in this enclosure, with a total of 6 needing to be tended to, but thankfully being dozy little things that plod around slowly, at least they're not going to be too hard to chase down when you need to diagnose their illnesses. Dealing with a mutated penguin on the other hand can be a whole different story, with the parasite blowing up the animal's size, giving it extended bat-like wings, while splitting its beak open into 4 individual sections. Now granted the ability to fly, this monster's main party trick is to flap around the room and generally be a really awkward target to pin down, which makes hitting the bloody thing with darts all the more challenging. It'll occasionally swoop down to roost, or stalk the other penguins and yourself from the ground, giving you the best opportunity to land a dart on it while it's relatively docile. Though just like with the other mutants, shooting the penguin is a good way to wind it up, causing it to go berserk and chase after you, even picking you up to be carried around the room, only to drop you in a new place, possibly away from all the other penguins that need protecting. Not very good if you want to save them all from getting savaged, with the rest of the colony now being on the menu. Entering a gorilla pen might have seemed a bit risky, but our zookeeper doesn't seem to mind going in with one of the world's deadliest mammals either. The African hippopotamus is another animal that you'll see, and you'll be tasked with looking after 3 of them within their somewhat wide tropical enclosure. Of course, taking care of them is easier said than done when one of them happens to transform into a huge bloated mess of infected tissue and bone, with its skeleton looking like it wants to escape its body, while a load of gruesome red blisters grow all over the creature's back. Not to mention that already potentially deadly mouth is now a hell of a lot more freakish, with its teeth protruding outwards like giant fangs, even able to pick up its prey and thrash them around, with it acting like a big claw, used to stab and grab its victims. Now you'd expect a giant monster hippo to just charge around the place, being a straightforward creature to keep an eye on due to its size and nature, but it's got a few unexpected tricks up its sleeve to try and catch you out, with one of them being the ability to dig underground, only to resurface elsewhere in the enclosure. Bit of a crazy concept, but it's a bit of a crazy game. Those spots on the hippo's back are also prone to bursting too when they're shot, releasing clouds of stomach-churning spores into the air, which can make you sick, temporarily halting your movement and lowering your vision. Though at least with the hippo being so big, it'll probably be an easy target to actually hit. Another African mammal that you'll need to try and save is the zebra. The typical sort of animal you'd expect to find in the zoo, with this enclosure having quite a few of them, all of which are prone to getting taken over by that parasite. Now the zebras might generally seem like calm-natured creatures, perhaps even being a bit more basic than some of the others, with them essentially just being stripy horses, but that parasite's not exactly going to be very kind to these guys, as those poor buggers have probably got it the worst. The zebra actually undergoes one of the wildest mutations, as its mouth is now essentially its backside, meaning the creature's going to be running around the place butt first, while its lifeless head trails around on the floor becoming a new tail, sort of flipping the animal's anatomy around in a pretty messed up way. A bunch of windy tentacles can be seen growing out from the zebra's back like fungus, and its whole body is warped to support its new unnatural feeding habits, with any unfortunate prey literally being eaten by an ass. Mutant zebras are extremely agile and can be a bit trickier to track down than some of the other animals, due to them charging around at rapid speeds and due to them climbing up and escaping the enclosure all the time, rushing back in from different angles to try and catch you out. They've also got a really wacky ability that lets them use decoys too, sending out multiple copies of themselves to try and trick you, only for the decoy to explode in a shower of bloody blobs, while the real one munches down on one of its former buddies. Definitely one of the strangest mutants. The moose is another hoofed animal that you'll find in the game, and just like the others, they're going to be nice and friendly upon your arrival, though they're still going to need to be fed and taken care of, as per usual, with some of them most likely feeling a bit under the weather. These guys might not be quite as exotic as some of the other animals in the zoo, but they can still get heavily mutated nevertheless, with that infection peeling away its flesh, revealing the muscle structure and bone underneath, growing parts of its skeleton to create a spiky ridge along its spine, along with splitting that skull apart into 3 segments, with the creature's face now acting like a big pincer-like tool, used for stabbing and grabbing its prey. Aside from when the mutant's resting after taking down some prey, it's a very ballsy animal, charging around the place, being just about as agile as you'd expect it to be, having similar sort of characteristics to the zebras, in the way it moves around and climbs out of that enclosure. But aside from having a lot of speed, this monster can also use the Slender Man trick, where it stares you out and makes the screen go all fuzzy, temporarily putting you out of action while those sinister eyes light up like a pair of bright blue torches staring right away into your soul. This stops you from looking at the creature for too long, forcing you to be a bit quicker when aiming and shooting, though at least the moose stands still during this time, making it one of the better opportunities to land a shot. So we've already established that our main character's got no fear or sense, casually wandering around enclosures with animals that are fully capable of tearing him limb from limb, and that's not even the mutated ones. Despite literally having tons of power, he's not fazed by joining the elephants in their pen either, though thankfully they're not very aggressive in their normal form, choosing to mind their own business, letting you get on with your zookeeping duties. But of course, that's not going to last very long in this zoo, as when the parasite decides to infect one of these guys, you just know that the outcome's not going to be very pretty. That mutation pretty much transforms the elephant into Cthulhu, giving it loads of small tentacle-like trunks, multiple eyes, a bulkier body, and generally a much more monstrous zombie-like appearance overall, as you'd probably expect. Just like the other mutant, these things have also got a taste for blood too, hunting down the other elephants in the enclosure, using all those extra trunks to feast on their down bodies after an attack. Though unlike a lot of the others, they're actually not very good at being stealthy, being such big creatures that don't really have any ways to hide or escape. This also makes them much easier to hit with your darts, but they do at least have one way of fending off your shots, temporarily hardening their skin to create an impenetrable barrier, causing those darts to ping off as they connect, which need to be retrieved to be used again. So that's it for this one guys, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more guides just like this, covering creepy monsters and mutants from other games, then now's a pretty good time to subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, have a good day, and I'll be seeing you in that next one.